Well, in this week's Cardiology Countdown, we'll talk about atrial fibrillation and anticoagulation. Also, what's the appropriate programming for ICDs, and fish oil, a big new study published in the New England Journal. So to begin with, we have a sub-analysis of the Aristotle trial that looked at the new anticoagulant apixaban, a factor Xa inhibitor, as compared with warfarin in patients with non-valvular atrial fibrillation. And this analysis compared the benefit seen with apixaban over warfarin based on the time in therapeutic range, or TTR, of warfarin, with the idea of exploring whether there's still a benefit when warfarin is well adjusted and the patient spends a lot of time in the therapeutic range. So they found consistent benefit with reductions in stroke or systemic embolism, in mortality, and in major bleeding that were not different across the different TTR groups. So they split the patients into quartiles by how well the center did, looking at all of that center's time in therapeutic range in the warfarin group, or in individual patients, and had very similar results, showing a benefit again with reductions in each of those three major endpoints. And so these data with similar results from other trials reaffirm the fact that it's really a benefit of the new agents to see improvements over warfarin, in this case both on the clotting and the bleeding side. Next up is an analysis of a randomized trial called ADVANCE-3 that looked at how long the detection interval should be in an ICD programmed with either anti-tachycardic pacing or defibrillation. And a slightly longer detection interval was compared to the standard. And in this case, in 1,900 patients, had an improvement in the number of inappropriate shocks that were delivered, with a reduction almost in half. It went from 11.6% per 100 patient years down to 5.1% inappropriate shocks. Fortunately, the appropriate shocks were on par, and so overall mortality and syncope and arrhythmia were not different. And so it looks like this may become a new approach to program the ICD device. And the number one pick this week is a study published in the journal, another large trial looking at fish oil. This was done in Italy in a general practice population, looking at patients who had atherosclerosis or myocardial infarction, used 1 gram of fish oil versus placebo, that was olive oil, and looked at cardiovascular death, MI, stroke, or cardiac rehospitalization, and found absolutely no benefit over a 5-year period on that primary composite or any of the components of the primary endpoint and other secondary endpoints. And so this had been an area where early on there was the Gissi Prevenzione, also from Italy, that had shown benefit of 1 gram of fish oil. The GELIS trial, looking at a higher dose, also showed a benefit. But then more recently in the ORIGIN trial in diabetics, and now in this study, the Risk and Prevention Study Collaborative Group, really no benefit seen of fish oil. There continue to be epidemiologic studies suggesting benefit of eating fish, and that still is likely recommended in our guidelines, but adding fish oil appears not to be as great a benefit as we had thought. So for this week's Cardiology Countdown, I'm Chris Cannon.